So this is going to be my top 10 80s movies. This is just my opinion. It may not match up to everybody else's. There's quite a bit I left off, but these were ones that, were very important to me that I saw quite a bit or left a lasting impression on me. So anyway, here we go. At number 10, we have The Breakfast Club from 1985.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, The Breakfast Club with those one-liners, so good. You know, teens in the 80s having detention, all from different, different groups. And it's funny how those groups are still, well, at least when I was in high school, those groups still were around. You had your, your country guys, your skaters, your preppy boys, your sports guys, your alternative rock people. You had just so many different people, your artists. It was crazy.
What was that ruckus?
What ruckus?
I was just in my office and I heard a ruckus.
Could you describe the ruckus, sir?
Two quick stories. Number one, I was never really into The Breakfast Club. I missed it in the 80s, but in the 90s, I had a creative writing teacher, Mr. Zucker, and he loved this movie. He made us watch it so many times that I finally began to understand it and just fell right into the trap of what a good movie this is. And the second one is I had just finished this video and they get an email from MegaCon Orlando, which I'm going to in February. And it goes, oh, the entire cast of The Breakfast Club will be here for autographs. I was like, you have to be kidding me. At number 9, we have another cult classic, Ferris Bueller's Day Off from 1986.
Bueller. Bueller. Bueller.
Ferris Bueller is so freaking good. I mean, not to give the plot away if you haven't seen it, but he skips school, pretends he's sick, and goes on an adventure. How do you just not love this movie?
Is there a problem?
You're Abe Froman,
That's right. I'm Abe Froman.
the sausage king of Chicago.
Ferris Bueller's charisma and just his will to not give up or ever look like a fool just makes this movie so perfect. But it also goes through, Cameron's issues with his dad, so it gets kind of deep. But it's just everybody trying to cover for Ferris, nobody knowing why he's sick, just making lines up the whole time, and it goes from you remember that when somebody was missing through high school, where is that person? It's such a good movie. At number 8, we have one of the movies my dad installed on me, is now an 80s cult classic, Revenge of the Nerds from 1984.
Hold it, Coach. You just hold it right there.
Revenge of the Nerds, wow. It's all the wrong back in the 80s, but it's got that cheesy comedy, adult humor, outcasts that didn't fit in, jocks trying to beat him up, nerds trying to get the girls. It was just, I don't know, something appealed to it to my father, and he let us watch it. And to this day, I'm always like, wow, I watched that. But yeah, it was a cult classic. It's funny. Revenge of the Nerds is very sexist, very 80s, 70s vibe going. It's not something that I think would be fully accepted today, but it was funny at the time. It really was outcast kids at that time. I mean, the groups, like I said before, even back in the beginning of this video, there was so many different groups growing up, even for me. So I could definitely relate at points, but I mean, I don't know if I would let my kids watch this movie. At number 7, we have The Karate Kid, Part 1 and Part 2.
Wouldn't a fly swatter be easier?
Man who catch fly with chopstick accomplish anything.
Man, the original Karate Kid, boy, has it created a trend these days with the show. It's crazy. It was such a good movie then and so inspiring, and Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio just so good at the roles.
Live or die, man. Die. Wrong.
Chozen went from devastating bad guy to probably one of the best things about Cobra Kai. I like his character arc in Cobra Kai. So, just Karate Kid 1 and 2. 2 was so good. I think I like 2 better than 1. And I had such a crush on the girl in this movie. It was ridiculous. But it was just such a good movie. It was so the fight scenes, the guy that came from like nowhere and learned from the wise man. It's a really good movie. And number 6, we have Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop from 1984.
Donald Brennan tell me Summers that Mr. Ahmed Foley is here to see.
Axel Foley.
Axel. Achwell.
Axel.
Beverly Hills Cop had that really raunchy humor from Eddie Murphy back in the 80s, but I just loved it. I remember, I loved that he always had the pistol in his back with the jacket or the hoodie on, and I remember trying to replicate that as a kid. It was just so stupid. It was like I'd get my plastic pistol. I'm Axel Foley.
I remember you used to drive that crappy blue Chevy Nova. What are you driving now?
Same crappy blue Chevy Nova.
That opening scene in Beverly Hills Cop 1 with the bust and the cigarettes and the music, the 80s music, it was just so freaking cool. And I remember just being so into this movie, and it was like, what was going on? And he was so out of his element, and the comedy one-liners from Eddie Murphy were so freaking funny. Just such a good movie. And the new one that just came out like last year, it was such a callback to this one, and I loved it. It was so good. At number 5, we have a movie that I never get tired of watching, Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School, 1986.
Is that your real hair?
What do you think?
I think you're trying to get back at your parents. That's what I think.
Man, Back to School. When this movie came out, my dad, again, let us watch it. He loved Rodney Dangerfield, and I definitely picked up Rodney through my life, too, because he's pretty damn funny.
Good teacher. He really seems to care. About what, I have no idea.
And when Rodney does the triple Lindy, I think my brother and I imitated that every summer when we were kids, because we had a pool in New York. We imitated that. He does the fart sounds with his arms and then checks the wind with his thumb. We must have imitated that like 3,000 times. This movie's so good. I just never get tired of it. It's so silly, but so funny. At number 4, we have the original Ghostbusters from 1984.
True. Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
I think the thing with Ghostbusters is it was just so different at the time. And you have all these good stars and comedy stars like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson. It just worked. It was just so good. Everybody was into Ghostbusters. There was this giant trend.
We've been going about this all wrong. This Mr. Stay Puft is okay. He's a sailor. He's in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble.
How can you forget the legendary I've Been Slimed scene? It's so good. And the new movies aren't too bad. I kind of like their callback to the originals. Ghostbusters is something to me and my friends that we cosplay at MegaCon every year. It's awesome. Ghostbusters is so damn good. At number 3, we have one of my personal favorites, Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. The older I got, the more I appreciate Indiana Jones and Lucasfilm and Steven Spielberg for this movie. It's so good. And, the boulder scene here in the beginning, and then him fighting the swordsman, it's just so damn good.
Indy, we have no time. If you still want the Ark, it is being loaded onto a truck for Cairo.
Truck? What truck?
Indiana Jones is legendary. It's this awesome theme music that will just stick in your head day and night. You'll never get it out. And that sense of comedy from Harrison Ford, along with, the mystery, the teacher looking for these artifacts, traveling all over, the adventure, the mystique. It's just done so well. And even the new one was kind of a throwback to the old one. I definitely liked it. I know it was kind of questionable, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of a kind. At number 2, we have Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future from 1985.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Man, I was in such a rush to see this movie, and with the Huey Lewis Power of Love soundtrack song, and just Michael J. Fox being so damn cool at the time, and him going back and seeing his mom and his mom falling for him. It was just such a cool movie. And Doc and like trying to get him back. It's so freaking good. I love it.
Hey, McFly!
I love the Back to the Future franchise. Like, I love all of the movies. I'm waiting for 4. I love the whole concept, the story, him going back, him going to the future, the betting, the Old West one. I just love Back to the Future. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I can never get tired of watching it. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd were just freaking amazing in this movie. It's, I guess it could be corny at times, but it's worth watching it and just sitting through all 3 of them. It's so damn good. At number 1, we have the gang from the Goonies in 1985.
What's his name? The pirate guy. One-Eyed Willie.
One-Eyed Willie. Yeah, he was the most famous pirate in his time. My dad told me all about him once.
Man, the Goonies cast was so good. Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Jeff Cohen, Ke Huy Quang, which I probably said his name wrong, Cary Green, Martha Plimpleton. Just so good. Like, they were so freaking good. And it's one of those things where, it's a bunch of kids having an adventure in the 80s, and they're after pirate treasure, and you just can relate to it, and it becomes one of, like, the all-time greatest movies.
Bullet holes.
This movie was such an adventure, and with Sloth, when Chung finds Sloth, it's just so freaking funny, and it just becomes this movie, this, like, when you're a child, you're like, could we go on an adventure like that? I lived on Long Island when this movie came out, and I remember there was a British sympathizer house on the island, and we were never allowed to go there by ourselves, but we got on our bikes, and we biked our way down to the island, and we went to this house, and we were looking for buried treasure from the American Revolution. We were so silly, but this movie inspired us, and we did it, and it was the same way, we went there, and we looked, and it was just, it's number 1 in my book for so many reasons. Wanted to throw some honorable mentions in because they're really good movies, and they're just not on my list. You got Princess Purple Rain, The Lost Boys, License to Drive, E.T., Gremlins, and I'm sure there's so many more that I probably missed, but all honorable mentions. Very good movies. Anyway, that's my list. Hope you enjoyed it, and leave some comments on your 80s movies list.